Hey going, my name's Terrence and welcome back to Rusted Iron Ranch. Today's video is a project that we haven't shown on the channel for a little while. It's the McDonald Diesel. It's a 1948 SE. I think these are 2 or 2.5 horsepower, and they're a vaporizing fuel cup setup as opposed to like a Bosch injection. So a pretty cool engine, made in Australia, like I said, 1948, actually made down in Richmond, I think Bridge Road, Richmond. So pretty cool. So since the last time you've seen this, I've had to do quite a bit of work to get it to where it is right now. I didn't do a lot, if any, filming, because we'll be talking probably 100 or so hours of time I've spent over the last couple of months just on and off, tending to little things, trial and error, to get it where it is right now. In the last couple of days I've done nearly 2 solid days just fiddling around trying to work out a few little things, and it's still not 100%, but we're getting somewhere. So what I might do is I'll just take you around to the little things that we've got done and give you an update of what I've had to do and how that's going to help us. Okay, so here we are at the head end of the engine. Last time I did put the head on. I think I assembled all the rocker assembly. Since that, I also put the vaporizer assembly in. Since that, I've got a couple of these levers. Actually, I bought a whole nother engine, 4 parts, but I think I've got enough to make a second engine now. So once this one's set in stone, I'll then start working on the other one and putting all my spare pieces into that one and try to make a second one run. What I've had to do, countless times I've set the valves. So to set the valves on these, you take it to compression stroke where both valves are open. So that would be actually intake, usually. Look at the decompressor. That's exhaust. Somewhere there actually. Let's take the decompressor off. So that's intake. There's compression. So that's actually feeling a little bit tight now. So when on compression stroke, you should have 1/32 of play in between both your exhaust and your inlet. So I've done that multiple times. The other thing that you have to set up here is the fuel, but I'll show you that in a second on a bit of a better angle. I've also installed a fuel tank, which I think this is off a McDonald SPI. A little bit wrong setup. I've had to make a bracket in behind here on the hopper to adapt it because the bolt spacings were wrong. We've got a fuel tap on here, just a little loop to get rid of air, and I'll put the original air. It's an oil bath air filter, really. I wasn't going to call it an air filter, but it kind of is an air filter. So I've put that on the bottom. Outstanding issues we have up here are that when I put on the head, I actually only just used large kind of O-rings around the, well, they're not that big, but they're around the heads, not around the head studs, sorry, around the copper pipe that comes through for the water jackets in the head. And they're leaking, so that's what the water is dripping down here. So at some point this is all going to have to come off, and I'm going to have to find a better solution for that. So still up the head end of the engine. I was having issues with when I did get it started, spoiler, it was blowing a lot of smoke. And with a lot of help from the guys on the Facebook group, the McDonald group on there, it turns out that here on the head of the engine, or the hopper of the engine, there's this little setup here. This part is original, the copper pipe and the valving isn't. Hands are all dirty now. So this has been adapted. So from factory this would have been a little like a vessel with a plunger type cap, and you would prime the cylinder. So this has a line that goes in onto the top of the cylinder to the piston. You would prime the cylinder with oil before starting, which makes perfect sense, up your compression ratio for starting. This one has been modified to be fed from the oil pump in the timing case in here. For whatever reason, probably low on compression or something like that. So what I've done, because I don't have a complete one of these setups, I've just put a tap in between, so you can crank it over open with the decompressor on at the start. Make sure we get oil pressure, which is that little telltale diaphragm setup back in the crankcase. When it does have pressure, we can assume that it's built up pressure and it's oil fed the cylinder, and then I can turn this off. I could start it with it on and then shut it off, but I've just been shutting it off beforehand. The other thing we've got to do up here, and I've done this multiple times and I'm probably going to have to do it again, is set the fuel lift. And the way I've been doing this is with a dial gauge. So this is my dial gauge. It's just a cheap eBay special. So I just set it here on the head, set up roughly like that. Okay, so try to have your dial gauge as vertical as possible, adjust down onto it, and it's about there. And what we're looking for is this fuel pin, we'll call it, which is just a needle and seat. We're looking for that to come up 1/32 of an inch, which in mil, which this dial gauge is 0.794. So I've just been taking it round to the 0.8. So what I do, decompressor off, and just to double check it, that looked to be way too far, but I don't know why that is. So what we're looking for is 0.794. I've just been going to 0.8. So when the push rod comes all the way back, this actuates the double offset lever, which then moves this way, which then lifts the fuel ramp, we'll call it, which then lifts the pin, or the needle and seat, and then that's how we get our fuel into the fuel cup down the bottom for the vaporizer unit. At the minute, this is set a little bit high. Actually, no, that went to 8 then. I think, yeah, so it seems to go high sometimes and not high others, so I don't know what the go is with that, but I might adjust that a little bit later off camera. The other thing I've had to do here today, this bolt which holds the double offset lever was getting bound up, and it had washers in either side of it, and it wasn't allowing it to freely move. So I just took the bolt out, put it on the lathe, and just took a little bit off the inside of here to allow, when it steps down, you can tighten the bolt fully, but this will float in the center, and already that's a lot better. But as you'll see in a minute, we're still not all the way there. Okay, here we are with our parts engine here, and I'll just use this to explain the governor setup. So the governor is run off the timing case in here, gear drive, and then we've got two weights that throw out when it spins up. When it spins up to speed, it throws out that center pin, which then drives a lever back in there. I think you can see that, which is the way you adjust your governor is the spring tension on the top of that lever. That lever then in turn rotates the shaft, which adjusts our ramp that gives more or less fuel to the needle and seat, essentially. So the issue, not this engine, this one works perfectly fine. See, I can actually, I don't know if you can see that actually. I can actually actuate the weights on the governor. Okay, I hope you can hear me. Back to the main engine. This engine's governor was totally seized up. So I've had to free that up, hitting the weights with a block of wood. I've then had to completely disassemble it, clean the parts. The culprit was, and I'll try and put a picture up if I can, if I know how to do that, was the very inner bearing was actually seized and not allowing the weights to throw it out and then actuate the rest of the governor setup. So we've got that freed up now, but I still don't think we're all the way there. And after this rain stops, I'll set you back up and we'll try and start it and you can see what you think. Okay, so the rain stopped. Just before we try and start this, I just thought I'd go over the vaporizing unit on this again, just for anyone who doesn't know or is new to the channel. So this is unlike a Bosch injection unit, which receives pressure from a pump or an injector pump to an injector, which is either just a nozzle pretty much or is the actuator in, say, a common rail setup. And they are fed pressure and they spray a pattern pretty much. This is fed no pressure. It's all gravity fed from the tank, and the fuel comes in here, and this is what we're looking at. This is another one here. So that drops down into the cylinder, and down the bottom, where you can see where it's wet down the bottom, there's two little holes. So pretty much what's happening is fuel comes down and just kind of fills this void. When that pin lifts up, there's a little needle and seat, like a little tap down the bottom. When that pin lifts up, it allows fuel to drop down into this cup down the bottom. When the piston comes up on the compression stroke, compression fills the cup and combusts inside the cup the metered amount of fuel, which is a very small amount, and it forces that fuel combusting, then forces out these two tiny little holes, and then kind of completes a bit of like a spray pattern type thing, and the rest would then combust in the combustion chamber as opposed to just in the cup. So that's how they get away with not having any pressure system. Actually a pretty cool system, and it's called a bronze system, BROHNS, or feed, which is, I think it's just spelt VEED. And I don't really know the history of it. I think it was Swedish or something like that. That's where the VEED and maybe the bronze comes in. But a lot of these engines, pre the SPI, which is the next kind of model, all ran a bronze vaporizing unit. And I do believe McDonald may have copied that idea off St. Mary's engines out of the US. They might have been onto it a little bit before, and I think one of the very first McDonald's may have been nearly a direct copy of one of their engines. So that's how that works. I think that's pretty cool. It's very, very bare bones. We're literally talking a needle and seat that measures a metered amount of fuel into a cup, which then shoots out after pre-combustion, shoots out two little holes and completes combustion in the combustion chamber. So pretty cool. Okay, with that, I'll set you up and let's see if we can get this thing started. Okay, so starting procedure, as far as I've worked out, decompressor on, crank it over, get oil pressure with our cylinder oiler on. I've got oil pressure now, shut that off. I do like to give it a couple of pumps on the double offset lever, just to make sure that some fuel is in the cup. Apart from that, give it a crank, pull the decomp up, turn the fuel on. Let me make sure it's getting fuel in there before I start cranking it. Going to put it on the Rust Iron Ranch dyno, just load it up a little bit, it runs a little bit better then. Now, I forgot to note before, one of the biggest things with getting this engine running was the right fuel. So these are a diesel, and they can run on all sorts of combustible fuels. They do say on the side crude oil engine, so supposedly they can run on crude oil as well. Now, I did have this going a couple of months ago, and that's why this video has taken so long to come out. And then I couldn't get it going again. And I couldn't work out what changed until the other day, and someone on the Facebook McDonald group said, have you tried starting it on Kero? And I remembered back thinking, I think I did start it on Kero, and then ever since I've been trying to run it on a Kero diesel blend or just diesel. So I went into the hardware, grabbed some diggers, kerosene, and that's what I've been running it on since. So that's worked really well. I'm going to also try to work out a way with a T-piece and a separate little fuel canister. I might try and start it on kerosene and then switch it over to the diesel, or vice versa. I might leave kerosene in here for the minute and then see if I can run it on other fuels out of a smaller little one on the side, just with 2 taps. So there you go. I just thought I'd make sure that that's in there because that's been a big factor in trying to get this running. I've gone through all sorts of things adjusting, and I probably didn't need to do that. I did need to do some of it, but a lot of it I was trial and error, something that was never going to be fixed without the right fuel. So there you have it. It does run. I'm pretty happy with that. Although I think it's a long way from running how I want it to run. I want to correctly set this governor and get it firing like on every rotation. Well, not every rotation, but every time it should be firing, I want it firing. It's kind of missing and kind of maybe riding the governor a little bit too much, over speed then coming down. That could be my fuel setting. Now I've shot this video, I'm going to go back through the fuel and correctly set that and see if I can get it dialed in a little bit more. I would just like it just to sit plodding away at a really low RPM, or as low as I can get it. I'd be pretty happy with that. At the minute, I'm happy that I can start it and run it, and it's consistently started. I pretty much have to do the same thing, operate the double offset lever, just prime that fuel cup, crank over, build up your oil feed the cylinder, build up your compression beforehand, and then yeah, just crank away and lift the decomp, and usually it fires like that first fire afterwards. So I haven't really had to crank through compression much at all, which has been really good. So until next time, I'm gonna do a little bit more work just to try and dial it in, and then hopefully I'll do another one of these update videos. This project has been one of those ones where I've just kind of like come out here at night, or I've spent half an hour here or there, so it's really not something that I apart from the last day or so, it's not something that I've just assigned a big block of time, and you need an even bigger block of time to try and film this stuff. So I'll probably continue just doing it as I'm doing, and then do these update videos because I think it's a pretty interesting engine. They're pretty common as well. It's not like it's a really rare engine. They are pretty common. They must have made thousands of these. A lot would have got scrapped, but yeah, they are still common. So if you want to find one, you more than likely will find an SE out there. An SE or an SPI, the one after with Bosch injection, are pretty common. So yeah, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, want to keep up to date with these projects, you know, I've got the Land Rover project starting now, continuing slowly on the Inter project, and we've still got our pasture that's growing. We're going to be revisiting the hay equipment at some point soon. Have to go over that. So yeah, if you want to stay tuned for all that, make sure you subscribe. But yeah, once again, my name's Terrence. This has been Rusted Iron Ranch. Thanks for watching.